question is, how did Tipperary survive against Cork, ultimately seeing the game off by 218 to 117 in Limerick? And, as I went down the stretch, you thought Cork are in prime position here because Tipperary had only a 2 point lead at half time. They created 21 chances and scored just 9 points and ultimately end up, only 2 points ahead. 1-4 for Cork in that first half from just 8 chances. So, over the course of the game, Tipperary had to do so much work to actually see this one through. Created 39 chances to 27, just about won by 4. And I think there was the real exclamation point of that last score where Ronan Maher caught a 50-50 high ball. And at the time, if you can allow the fact that I'm a Tipperary man for a moment, I saw him coming off his man, who might have been Horgan at that stage, someone in a white helmet anyway, and he went to attack the high ball, and you're half thinking if this breaks in behind, there's a goal on, and maybe that'll level the game. Actually would have put Cork only a point behind, but he snapped it, knocked it up the field. Willie Connors came on, gave it to Paul Flynn. He got his second point over the bar. You'd have to say the substitutes and the guys who weren't used against Limerick that played for Tipperary, they were the ones who really stepped up over the course of the game. Like Michael Breen scored 5 or 6 points. Dan McCormick scored a couple. He was involved in everything. I put up online that I thought Bonner was doing very well when he played. Now, he was ultimately taken off, but it's not like he was free scoring, but he was winning an awful lot of ball, turning over a bit of ball. I thought he was very good. Willie Connors came on. He was very good. Paddy Cadell, he set up the goal, if I remember correctly. So an awful lot of those lads for Tipperary who didn't start the previous day, they came in and they made a real impact, which, the other thing is in the second half, Tipperary started to use the ball a little bit better. In the first half, as I said, 21 scoring chances and to convert just 9. Think about the amount of long range chances. Between the 11th minute and the 21st minute, Tipperary had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wides. 7 wides out of 9 shots. That's allowing a team into the game. Cork, as we saw the first day against Waterford, they're liable to produce very poor performances, or as we saw against Dublin, if you allow them to have space, they can destroy you. And that time in the second half, there was a big run of scores where Cork got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 6 scores, and they got themselves very close to Tipperary and ultimately got themselves level a couple of times. And you were thinking, with the pace they had in that team, with Dara Fitzgibbon coming on, obviously they'd have loved to have started him with his pace. With Lahan coming in, he missed the chance, trying one over his shoulder. But you just thought that this was set up for Cork now to take over, and Tipperary probably, in an overall sense, have more miles on the clock. And, they had to rejig their team a bit. Didn't have Barry Heffernan, didn't have Seamus Kennedy, 2 key guys who I'd imagine would have definitely started if they were both fully fit. And Tip had to rejig that team. Niall O'Mara went in wing back. He plays in the half back line for his club. We know that, but has done most of the years. But coming in and trying to forge a partnership in the space of a week and a half, where you probably do 2 or 3 training matches alongside Paddy Maher and Brendan Maher, trying to build up those lines of communications, even just the defender's instincts, when you're so used to playing wing forward as well with the county. Probably should have hooked Patrick Horgan. Now, Patrick Horgan did very well. He sort of stole a ball that Michael Breen was hand passing out for ruck. He stole it ahead of Brendan Maher, soloed through, and he waited Cathal Barrett was coming off his man, and he just waited. And I presume he just thought Brian Hogan was then going to go over and take Declan Dalton, and he just hit it into the corner of the net. Brilliant finish by Patrick Horgan, but sure, what would you expect? He's been doing it for years. And a lot of those Tipperary players that have been there for years kind of struggled at times, and certainly against the pace. But they eventually stepped up and got it over the line, and Tipperary haven't looked like Tipperary so far this season. There's no point in saying otherwise. Like, you expect free score and stuff, but then again, when you play 2 matches in monsoon-like weather in the west part of the country, and you compare that with some of the conditions where we've seen games played in, that aren't quite so far over to that Atlantic coast. Even Thurles was grand last week. Croke Park has looked fairly good so far, and from here on out, maybe it will be Croke Park, or maybe like the last couple of years they'll go down to Cork for the quarterfinals. Obviously the teams are going into the hat and we'll find out. But Tipperary just about squeaked through. Definitely not the sort of performance for 70 minutes that you would suggest Tip can get back in and win All Ireland again. But you just never know, because last year they laboured at times, especially through the back door against Laois especially, and even before that weren't looking unbelievably hot. But Jake Morris's goal, just fantastic finish, and as I said, Paddy Cadell fed him. And then you were thinking when he got the ball and he was soloing through, the right man has it, because he has got that killer instinct. Scored a hat-trick in the Tipperary quarter-final against Thurles this year. he's definitely got goals in him. And the way he finished against Limerick as well was just as comprehensive. Buried it in the corner, gave Anthony Nash no chance as well. And it must be said, Anthony Nash's puckouts weren't carrying as far in the wind in the first half as Brian Hogan's were in the second. Now, the wind may have changed, so that may be slightly unfair, but whether it's a thing of Hogan having longer range or whether the wind died down, that definitely played into Tipperary's hands a little bit. But Tipperary did look dicey at times, there's no doubt about it. Just about got through, and did they deserve it? Probably just about. I mean, they got there for a finish and showed a bit of heart to score. Well, I suppose coming down the very stretch after Patrick Hogan had levelled it with 5 minutes to go, Tipperary outscored Cork 1-2 to a point that Bill Cooper got at the very end. So stepped up when it matters, and maybe it'll be a bit like last year. It's the ultimate test of character, as happened with 14 men against Wexford, and then stepped up and coasted home from there. Now, given what else is in the tournament at this stage, and given how Tipperary are midway through the season and it still feels like they're trying to find their starting 15. But when lads like Willie Connors are coming in, putting up their hands, Paddy Cadell just for a few minutes as well, when Dan McCormick and Bonner are in there doing their stuff, and Breen, I mean, it's no surprise. I think everyone was fairly shocked when you saw the team before the Limerick match and you were thinking, you need Dogs of War out there, and it's probably the Dogs of War that got it done. And Jake Morris, you wouldn't think he'd be necessarily a Dogs of War. He did some brilliant things. A couple of things didn't go right for him either. But to get that finish, and then you would, from a Tipperary point of view, they'll be hoping that Callan can light it up another day. That Ford, as well as that lovely goal that he got where he turned Colin Spillane, then maybe he can get more on the board again. So from Tipperary's point of view, encouraging win. For Cork's point of view, very disappointing because they had themselves in a position. They'd done so well against the win. Mark Coleman set up as a sweeper. Things were going fairly well. Didn't look like they were panicking at all. Seamus Harnedy, brilliant performance. Something like 4 points there in the second half. Really excellent. Patrick Horgan did his bit as well. But just kind of ran out of road. Just when you thought that they were about to see Tipperary off and use that bit of extra pace. But Tipperary got through. So let me know what you think about Tipperary beating Cork eventually down in Limerick in horrific conditions, 218 to 117.